Today we're going to take a deep dive into how this group justified murdering innocent people. It's a story that is as distressing as it is bizarre. I mean, it is really bizarre. But it's important to understand if we're going to wrap our minds around how easy it was for this group to just plow down innocent people. So, before we jump into that, we have to talk a little bit about how Lori Vallow met Chad Daybell. There's some controversy, there are different theories around it. And shockingly, although not shockingly at all, it is impossible to get a straight answer from this group about how these two met. Obviously, this was a momentous occasion. When these two came together, it was an unholy alliance. So you would think it would be top shelf, top of the mind. What was the event where these two met? And you can't get a straight answer. So I'm going to share the different theories that are out there, and then I will share which side of the fence I land on. So theory number one was that Chad and Lori met on September 23rd, 2018. This came from an anonymous email that was sent to someone on Reddit. I think this person ran a subreddit. At first, I thought this source was completely bogus because early on when I came across it in February, I thought there's just no way that people can believe in zombies and evil spirits overtaking people. And there was a lot in this document I just dismissed. I saved it for future reference just in case, but I really dismissed it. However, in retrospect, as different details started to come forward, I actually revisited that document and found it, as well as a document written by Melani Pawlowski, which we will get to later in the video, to be very reliable and written by an inside source. If I had to put money down on it, I would say it was Melanie Gibb's boyfriend, David Warwick, and he will come up in this video. Of course, there's no way to know because it was anonymous, but there were details shared in that email that had not gone public yet. And I talk a little bit about that in my timeline. You can dive into that. We're going to dive into that document. So this is the Reddit document. It's nearly impossible to read. So what I did was I extracted it and just added some formatting around it because I don't know what happened in the conversion. If someone was on a 20-year-old computer when they accessed this, I have no idea. But this is a very difficult document to read. However, this is word for word everything that's in that document. So it's under this section here, Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow. You can see that right here. I just noticed particular patterns that indicated some things were meant to be headings. So that's why I made it a heading. It says here, they met technically September 23rd, 2019. I believe this was a typo. It was supposed to be 2018. Everything else said 2018. So they met technically September 23rd, 2018 through Jason Mow at Temple. Chad was told around that time by one of the three Nephites, Mathoni, that a special woman would come into his life. So that's the first theory. I tuck away this Jason Mow reference because I have a theory that this comes back up again. You can determine for yourself. So first theory, September 23rd. Second theory was that they met at an event October 26th. It says here, Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell meet at a Preparing a People event in St. George, Utah. So I created a video. I went to the source using the dashboard, which I explained in the first video, and just kind of extracted a video segment from it just to kind of give more visibility into this.
And at what point did she meet Chad? Because you knew Chad and you knew Lori, but they were separate relationships.
Correct. So I met her first. Well, I mean, I met him, like within years, but didn't know him super close or anything like that. So then I meet her, and then her and I decided that we're going to go to an event in St. George, and so we drove down together. And then he was selling his books and speaking, and so that's when they got to meet. So that was probably October, November, somewhere in that time frame of the same year.
2018. Mm-hmm. So did you introduce them?
I don't know if I did or she just went up to the table. I can't recall.
And was there anything unusual or magical or different about when they met?
So we were there for 2 or 3 days, and I think he was there for 2 days, and she talked to him a lot about his books, and so she asked a lot of questions, and she was very interested in what he thought, and she was interested in what she knew, and so they just started talking about these different beliefs that generally are not something you learn in church, and so they started to kind of develop that connection right there. Mm-hmm.
And were you kind of intergrained with all of it right there as they're talking about these things?
I am going in and out, and I'm not sure exactly all the things they're saying.
I see.
Yeah.
But it wasn't anything unusual. It would be if you found somebody at the church that had similar beliefs and you were talking about things, or was it a step further?
It was a step further. It was discussing the things that were not something you would talk at church. It was something that you would talk closely with not a lot of people listening.
Did you know that Chad had a wife and 5 kids in Rexburg?
Mm-hmm.
And did Lori know that?
Yes.
And was Tammy ever with Chad?
No.
She didn't come with him to the events?
No.
And did his children?
Not that I know of.
So in this next segment, we're going to hear from Melani Pawlowski to hear her take on when they met. Again, this should be a very simple, straightforward answer. It's a straightforward question, and they clearly all know the answer to this question. But let's see what Melanie has to say.
I know.
How well did you know Chad? I know they maybe had met and developed a relationship over the past year and a half or so, but they got married pretty quickly, especially soon after both of their spouses had passed. How well did she know him, and how well did you guys know him?
I don't know the first time when Lori met Chad. I met Chad initially in the fall of 2018, and he was selling his books, and I met him, and he was very quiet and humble guy that just seemed kind of kept to himself, and I had no reason to think anything other than he's just trying to sell his books and just be a good person. And Lori and Chad had a friendship, and I don't know when they initially met. I think they shared some spiritual beliefs, or would talk about it with his books or ideas in his books. But I can't speak to their relationship and why they got married fast. And I know Ian and I got fast, and we kind of act on faith and get our own answers of what's right for our own situations. And
So that wasn't bad editing on my part, although I'm sure there will be lots of bad editing on my part in this video. The reporter jumped into the next question. So the thing I find really unusual there is here you have 2 different Melanies describing an event that happened in the fall where Chad was selling his books, but Melani Pawlowski, who is the second Melanie we heard from and is Lori Vallow Daybell's niece, isn't aware of when Lori and Chad met. It just seems like everyone's kind of taking a step back and not wanting to take responsibility in any way for these 2 meetings. So even the fact that Melanie Gibb couldn't quite recall if she introduced them or if Lori just happened to go up to Chad's table, it just doesn't pass the sniff test for me personally. But the fact remains that they did meet. I actually lean toward the 9/23 date. The reason for that is the October 26th date just seems to bump up a little too close to the next significant date, which was October 30th. which was when Chad emailed Lori a bizarre breakdown of light and dark ratings for her family members, and also Melani Pawlowski's family members. This is truly a bizarre document. We're going to jump into that in just a minute, but I think there would have had to have been some time for them to discuss some of Lori's issues with her family members. And you can tell in this document how Lori feels about each of her family members by the scores they were assigned. So basically what Chad did was super spiritualize Lori's every grievance with her family members. And let's see how that shakes out. Okay, we won't jump into all of them. You can see here Lori's son, Colby Ryan, 3L, Kelsey, not so lucky, 3D. So what Chad was assigning here was he was basically quantifying how pure or evil a person was. So obviously, the higher the L score, the purer they are, the more righteous they are, the more light they have. The higher the D score, the more evil they are. He has, in the first page, he actually documents that 2s and 3s are fluid and can change sides during Earth life. 4.1 and above have made covenants to their side. They rarely switch sides. So this is a significant number when we go to this other side. It is interesting also that I will note, he says most bishops and ward leaders are level 3. Most stake presidents and general authorities are level 4. Now, I'm not LDS, so I don't really understand what all of these positions are, but I'm assuming we're going in ascending order up the food tree here. When we go back to this document here, what is notable is, first of all, Lori's score. Of course, she is the fairest of them all with a 4.3 L of all the ones that Chad quantified. And my brother, Joseph Ryan, had the all-time high or low score of 4.3 D, so very dark. And Chad also notes that he is now sealed away. So I have no idea what that means. I'm assuming it means he can't come back in another probation, which is what they call multiple lives. And we'll get into that more. But he also scored Tylee just under Joe's score, coming in at a 4.1 D. So Chad is listening to these grievances that Lori has and basically tells her, oh, there's a good explanation for that. Your daughter is actually a dark spirit. And if we check back, 4.1 and above have actually made covenants to their side, which implies that Tylee and Joe chose to be that dark, and they rarely switch sides. JJ is assigned a very high score. In fact, I think he was the second highest score, just behind Lori, if memory serves me correctly. Yeah, so I was looking for JJ. Joshua Vallow came in as a 4.2 L, so just behind Lori, and he edges out all the competition. So Chad is saying that 4.1 and above on either side rarely switch sides, but we will see by the end of this video, JJ does switch sides. So clearly they're just making all of this up as they go. What's also notable here is that Charles was given a high score, so he was a 3L, so still subject to some vacillation back and forth. I have no idea what the 1700s London reference is. It's anyone's guess. But he also makes his way to the dark side. I suspect part of the reason Chad was given a high score is 2 weeks after Chad sent this email with this document to Lori, he stayed in Lori and Charles' home. So Charles opened up hospitality to all of these members so that they could attend a conference in Mesa, Arizona. And we'll watch a quick video about that.
So where did their relationship go from there?
So after spending much time talking those 2 days, we went back to Arizona, and he came down to Arizona when it was the next event, which was in November sometime. And so many people, so some of my friends, some of Lori's friends, and then Chad, all got to stay in her house. It was one of the larger houses she had, so she had plenty of room throughout her house. And so they spent some time talking. And he spent some time talking to us as well.
Everybody stayed in this house.
Right.
Chad, Lori, you. Was Charles there?
No, he went out of town.
He was out of town.
Mm-hmm.
And just by way of reference, this is the home they stayed in. This is also the home I stayed in when I flew out there May 2018. It was a resort. It was absolutely palatial. Here are just a few pictures. I felt like I was living in a mansion. Absolutely gorgeous.
So he wasn't there at the house the day that you guys were all there for that conference.
Right.
The conference happens, and what happens from there with Chad and Lori?
They just spent time talking about things. They went on a walk together, or jog in the morning together. I do recall that. All the things they talked about. It's like so personal. It's so hard to share with the world. You know what I mean?
So it was very personal details.
Some of it, he was teaching us about some of his understandings about multiple lives and things of that nature. But at that point, he had already shared with her when they met in St. George that they had been married multiple times before. So that was established when they first met.
Chad told Lori when they first met that they had been married before?
Not in this, right now, this earth life, but in multiple earth lives.
In a previous life.
Mm-hmm.
And did Lori have an issue with that?
No, she seemed to understand that teaching already, that she had learned already through podcasts. So it wasn't something that was
Foreign,
right.
So mad props to Nate Eaton for being able to maintain a straight face through that. So getting back to the light and dark spirits, Melani Pawlowski does offer some insight into that. As is a common theme with Melanie, it's not particularly helpful or insightful, but it is particularly Melanie.
Well, where did the ideas of light, dark, and zombies even come from?
The initial light dark when I saw it was this document Charles brought over to our home when he was kind of being aggressive towards Lori, and I didn't understand what that meant. There was some, in this document circulating around, but it says something to the extent of that JJ's so many points light and Tylee's so many points dark, and other family names on there, and I'm trying to process what does that mean. In our faith of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, it talks a lot, and just in the scriptures in general, and in the Bible, it talks about light versus dark. And as you increase in positivity in your life and try to become like our Savior, you increase in light. And as you are not listening to, listening to more negative things or inviting negative things into your life, it's less light, and that's kind of how I explain it and understand it to my knowledge.
Okay, so moving on. How did this actually play out? Well, we see this play out for the first time with Charles Vallow. We're going to take a look at a video from a Dateline episode to shed some light on what it looked like from Charles' perspective to be assigned as a dark spirit.
So Kay and Larry believed that killing was planned, but they were also pretty sure they knew when the plan was set in motion. January 22nd, 2019, 6 months before Charles was shot. That's when, according to Kay, Lori got an email from her new religious guru, Chad Daybell. The subject, a demon with a name, Nick Schneider.
Chad told Lori that that's who took over Charles's body.
Again, talk of satanic possessions. Remember, Angela Stone said she was told there was a demon within her. and she'd heard Chad's own wife had been taken over by a zombie. And what happens to those possessed? Well, according to Charles's divorce papers, Lori had only one cure for her husband. If Charles got in her way of her mission, his lawyer wrote, she would murder him. A month after that conversation with Kay, on March 26, 2019, Charles sent a series of text messages to a friend, bemoaning Lori's descent into religious fanaticism. Things have changed so dramatically in the past 6 months, he wrote. Something snapped. It is so unbelievable and scary. I'm thankful she doesn't see JJ. She wants him and for me to disappear. Seriously, it's the freakiest thing I've ever experienced. She's with a group of people called Woke and preparing a people. She actually believes I'm not Charles. She says an evil spirit named Nick Schneider murdered me and is using me to violate her.
Charles also references this demon, Nick Schneider. We'll get into that when we get to what happens within a week of this email or call that Chad makes to Lori. Kay said it was an email. Melanie Gibb said that it was a call. But essentially, Chad explains to her that this demon, who was given a very human name, Nick Schneider, overtook Charles' body, pushed Charles out, and is now violating Lori as well as her family. Again, we'll get into this more in a future video, but the wreckage is immediate. Almost immediately, if not immediately, we don't have the exact date, but Lori vacates the home and then turns Charles' life into a living hell. We're not going to get into that, but I do want to dive into the Nick Schneider idea a little bit more. First of all, it just seems to be a very puerile way of thinking. I mean, here you're saying that this person has this demon and you're giving this demon a name. I mean, this might be a little childish on my part, but it reminds me of this Parks and Rec video.
Now imagine you're holding coffee. This is outrageous. Where are the armed men who come in to take the protesters away? Where are they? This kind of behavior is never tolerated in Boracua. You shout like that, they put you in jail. Right away. No trial, no nothing. Journalists, we have a special jail for journalists. You're stealing, right to jail. You're playing music too loud, right to jail, right away. You're driving too fast, jail. Slow, jail. You're charging too high prices for sweaters, glasses, you right to jail. You undercook fish, believe it or not, jail. You overcook chicken, also jail. Undercook, overcook. You make an appointment with the dentist and you don't show up, believe it or not, jail, right away. We have the best patients in the world because of jail.
Replace jail with zombies, and that's how this group worked. Okay, so why the name Nick Schneider? It's such an oddly specific name. So I dug, and so did others in a crime group that I'm a part of, True Crime Underground. Love that group. So we just started digging around, and I even put this out on my timeline because I was curious about it, and I landed solidly on this theory that this Nick Schneider was actually named after a real Nick Schneider, and I'm going to make a case for it, and you decide for yourself. But there's a demonologist by the name of Nick Schneider. His screen name is Nicholas Gotik. Nick. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he wrote the introduction for a book on demonology called Demonology Gosha, and he's also listed on demonolatry.org as a donor. I'm just going to search here. There we go. He's a sustaining donor. The reason I kind of chased this down, the reason it was important to me is that I think that one of the members has this gravitational pull toward things of kind of more of a demonic nature. I think for this one particular guy, all this prepper stuff didn't really set that well with him. He didn't seem to be that into prepping. This one particular member, I'll just say who I think it is, Jason Mow, he tends to be more bellicose. He used to be a police officer, first in Chandler and then in Phoenix, and retired early due to an injury. And he's part of this group, although now he's kind of backing that up and really trying to distance himself. In fact, in this particular post, this was in June, so just last month, he posts this uplifting post here. And someone called him out, saying, I guess you associating with cult people who allegedly kill their spouses and kids is okay as well. Jason Mow replies, wow, good morning, troll. Fake news. They have never been my friends, and if they did kill their kids, I hope they burn in hell. Stop believing hearsay, conjecture, unnamed source, and I think that was supposed to be outright lies. If you think I was involved and you have proof, then call the FBI. Gives us the number, very helpful, is their national hotline. So let's rewind the clock a bit and see how he felt about Melanie and Lori back in 2018.
All right, it is November 26, 2018. We are our very first podcast. My name is Jason Mow, and to my left is...
I'm Melanie Gibb.
Melanie is awesome. For those of you that don't know who she is, she has some amazing abilities, amazing gifts. She is what we in the business call a gatherer, and people are naturally attracted to her because of just the light that beams out of her. The first time I saw her, I knew instantly that she was a gatherer, and she's become basically the point person here in the Southwest area for like-minded people to start focusing on greater light of knowledge and learning a lot about themselves and about the Lord and what it is that He wants from us. And so I am honored to have her to my left.
Thank you.
Also with us today is
Lori.
And Lori is so cool. Lori and I met in a very, very unique situation. And real quick, Lori, let's talk about that before we start, because people don't even know who you are. Well, people in the know who you are, but one of the reasons why we're doing this podcast is so that we can spread the light of knowledge and help people learn about who they are and find their gifts and draw closer to Christ. And what happened to you was pretty unique, and how we ended up in the same room together is even more unique. So can we start off with that?
We can. It's so fun to be here with Jason and Melanie. I love them so much and grateful for them and all their service that they do. I feel like that I work for the Lord. I feel like I have turned my life to Him from circumstances that have happened to me in my life, and I ask Him who He wants me to meet, who He needs me to go to, and what He wants me to do. And I was sent to the temple on a certain day to get a message from someone, and in walked Jason Mow.
And when I looked at you, when I looked into your eyes for the first time and really saw who you were inside, I instantly knew you're one of us. You're a gatherer. You know, you get it. You understand that there's something bigger going on here than just church on Sunday, that this is the end times, and you are awake, you are prepared, you are moving in that direction. And I saw that in just a half a second of that brother and sister connection that we made, and I just knew right away I had to get you in touch with Melanie, and we needed to connect somehow.
Okay, so I referenced this earlier, but both Jason and Lori make these veiled references to both of them being in the temple. Lori felt sent to the temple. Someone at the temple had some kind of message for her. Jason also notes that this is kind of an unusual, almost supernatural type event. And I never made this connection until today, but I wonder if this is what they're talking about. If September 23rd, 2018 was not only how Lori and Jason met, but also Lori and Chad. What's also notable with Jason Mow is he had this kind of passive-aggressive tendency to post things on social media that just happened to coincide with key events as this tragedy unfolded. Case in point, Charles Vallow was shot and killed by Alex Cox on July 11th, 2019. We will certainly get to that in a future video, but that's pretty well known if you followed the case at all. Also notable, Charles owned a Jeep Wrangler. This was the car that Tylee Ryan drove, but it was in Charles' name. So the next day, Jason Mow posts on Facebook, looking to buy a used Jeep 4-door Wrangler. Anyone know a guy? LOL. It would appear that this was, again, just kind of a shot across the bow. Hey, I know that this thing happened. And it feels very reminiscent of middle school, where you're kind of talking in code with other people who are in the know, as he said. Another one that jumped out at me, this was a couple weeks after Charles was shot, and he posts this meme of a woman holding a baby and a rifle, which is already kind of disturbing enough. But then the meme says, a gun in the hand is worth more than the entire police force on the phone. What really jumped out at me about this meme, so I kind of tucked it away, but I noticed after I built out the dashboard and was building out some of these themes, was that Charles made a reference to Lori owning a rifle in this body cam footage from January 30th. So I'm just going to play that.
Does she have anyone at the house? She does? Does she know how to use it?
I don't remember them ever having a rifle when I was there. They might have, but that was news to me. So he didn't just land on my radar. With some of his cooperation with Lori and Melanie, we'll get to some of that when we talk about Gilbert Police Department. Both Lori and Melanie kind of chirp on about their police guy friend, Jason Mow. He just happens to be in Lori's neighborhood during this big event. And again, we'll get to that in a future video. But he wasn't just on my radar. He also landed on the FBI's radar. So Justin Lum of Fox Him FOIA'd some documents. And here we have several emails between an FBI agent and someone. I'm not sure if it's another agent or local law enforcement or what, but you can see here that this person was assigned to dig into Jason Mow. This was December 4th, 2019. Rexburg Police Department did not announce the investigation or that the FBI was involved in the investigation until December 20th. So you can see some strategy in here. Before they announced it, they dug into these podcasts because they wanted to kind of try to understand this group. Probably knowing full well, as soon as this investigation was announced, these podcasts were going to be deleted, and they were just wiped. A really clever YouTuber who is no longer with us, RIP Denise, she grabbed that one podcast. But there are very few podcasts that are publicly available. Here you see this agent saying, regarding our earlier phone conversation on 12/4/2018, Lori Vallow and Melanie Gibb did a podcast with Jason Mow. This was the podcast we just listened to a snippet from. This is Lori's first podcast. Jason explains how the three of them came to be on the podcast together and said that he met Lori at Temple and they had an instant connection. He knew she was a quote gatherer and had to connect her with Melanie Gibb. Now, Melanie gives a different rendition for how she and Lori met. She said that she was teaching at church or the temple and Lori was in her class. So again, it's never straightforward with this group. Mel told his story of how he came to believe in God and to the life he lives today. In this story, he said he was a retired Phoenix Police Department officer and retired in 2017. He talks about working in South Phoenix and was in a fight with a suspect, date unknown, where he was seriously injured, detached hamstrings from the pelvis. Let me know if you have any questions or need anything additional. So that's all we have from that email, but then there was another email exchange, and we'll start from the earliest email and work our way up. So someone emails and says, hey, sorry for the delay. OMG, we didn't wrap up our section until 2:30, sad face. So per PPD homicide sergeant, so sounds like this was Jason Mow's sergeant. Richard Mow, Richard is his first name, did work there, but not for a long time. His full name per their records is Richard Jason Mow. Most recent address, obviously they redacted that separation in July 1st, 2017. Victim, 2011, assault possibly. I'm not sure what that is referencing. If there was a victim of Jason's or if Jason was a victim, I don't know. Sounds like homicide sergeant is familiar with him because he was sleeping in the front seat of his car while he was supposed to be doing security for them as they were executing a search warrant. Apparently, Lori and Melanie weren't aware of this little piece of history. I'm calling name redacted now to discuss over phone before I start putting anything to the group as a whole. PPD will help with whatever on this. Do you mind looking into him a bit further if you weren't already? Dumb question, I'm sure. LOL. Thank you, CE. So moving on up, someone replies to C saying, I started basic checks on Mel but didn't get far before I had to leave. I'll dig more in the morning. Redacted name. Started looking into some of the info, redacted name, sent over regarding the phone data they had from Melanie's phone. I think she'll have more for us on that tomorrow. The twists keep coming. I'm in the middle of a podcast from December 2018 where Lori mentions how suffering leads to salvation and that even though she doesn't want her kids to suffer, she understands they have to in order to see the light. That part of the podcast was chilling. And ultimately, someone replies to that saying, redacted name is reviewing more podcasts, not soothing by any means. I'll let you know what they find out. So Melanie Gibb said in one interview, which we'll get to in a minute, that zombies came along later. And I bought this. This seemed credible because you don't hear Charles reference zombies. You don't really hear anyone talking about zombies until maybe the spring of 2019. However, I found something in a video just today where Melanie does reference that. So we'll get to that in a minute. The last example I'll give, it's not the last example I have, but the last one I'll include in this video because I've kind of already made the point, is on February 26th, Lori Vallow Daybell had her second court appearance in Kauai where she was seeking a bail reduction. Originally, her bail was set at $5 million. And she was trying to get it reduced. That request was denied. And the next day, Jason posted this, God bless George Washington. And the angel said unto him, the petition didn't work. You're going to have to shoot them. So now I just want to circle back for a minute about Melanie Gibb's claim that the term zombie wasn't used until later because she does reference Charles being a zombie in the third episode of Dateline. So let's take a listen at that.
Melanie, at the time, could scarcely understand what happened. Lori had told her Chad's prophecy that Charles would die, but shot to death?
I'm thinking he's going to pass away, like they would have a prayer, maybe the spirit would leave and his body would just die, you know, if it was really true that there was, if he was a zombie. And yeah, I just I didn't see that coming.
So part of the reason I think personally that this whole sophomoric element of zombies made its way into their doctrine is Jason Mow, back in, I think this was 2013, worked on this project for this kind of B-rated movie, Speak No Evil. I will warn you, this trailer is dark. I'm going to play it, but if you are bothered by dark things like zombies, this also involves kids who become zombies. So in light of everything we know now, it is kind of chilling. I'm not saying that there was any kind of forethought that this would be something he would actually one day act on. What I'm saying is it seems to be more an issue of life imitates art. So with that, I'm going to play the video. Again, you may not want to watch this.
So the last time you saw her was around 10 o'clock. You two doing any drinking tonight?
What?
Any illegal drugs?
My daughter was taken from my home tonight!
Lost her out there. You lost her!
They're all gone. All the kids in the town are gone. Damn it, Dale! I need your help! It won't let you have her. Nobody's coming for us, are they?
Whoever did this to Joey didn't want to kill her. They don't want her to talk.
Joey!
You can't do this for yourself.
My daughter is very sick! His hair again.
Oh my God! Go, go, go! Children do now.
Certainly not uplifting material by any stretch of the imagination, especially in light of everything that we know now or that you will learn in these videos. But Jason Mow both served as safety coordinator as well as playing a role in the movie. I think his daughter also played a role in the movie. So we're going to listen to that interview. This shouldn't be as triggering.
My name is Jason. I am the safety coordinator on Speak No Evil. The biggest concern I have coordinating safety out here is dealing with all the extras that we have. We have a ton of kids out here, and we're doing daytime shooting, nighttime shooting, running through a trailer park, dealing with the desert environment, the heat. There's a lot of things, a lot of factors that can come into play. The Cavender kids are amazing. Those are some really, really good actors. I've seen them do some unbelievably intense scenes here on set, and they're able to switch it on and switch it off like it's nothing. And for me, I can still feel the intensity after the scene, and they go right back to being kids. You know, one scene they're possessed by demons, the next, you know, having a good time, and I've really taken them under my wing. Just tried to be a good friend with them, somebody they can confide in, somebody they can feel safe around. I'm not so much concerned about the production as I am about just making sure everybody makes it through safe. Rose and his team are doing a fantastic job. Everybody's being real mature about it. Some long, hard days, some long, hard nights, and I'm just looking forward to the wrap and making sure everybody walks off the set in one piece, and that we can all be together for the premiere.
So next up, we are going to specifically take a look at what this group believed about evil spirits and zombies and how that factored into these deaths. We see a reference to this was a really sad reference. It was in the affidavit of probable cause for Chad Daybell after he was arrested. And in line item 9, it says, Melanie Gibb has further informed me that Lori Vallow called Tylee a zombie in the spring of 2019. So keep in mind, this is before even Charles was shot and killed as a zombie. So this really informs, in my mind, Tylee's complete and total systems shutdown when Charles was shot, because she had to have known that her mom was calling him a zombie. She went with her mom to Hawaii when she stayed with Lori's friend April Raymond. Lori is very obsessed when she latches onto something. She talks about it over and over and over. So for Tylee to be referred to as a zombie by her mom had to be really chilling and really scary for her. The affidavit goes on to say Gibb was on the phone with Lori and heard Lori call Tylee a zombie, to which Tylee responded, "Not me, Mom." This arose out of Lori requiring Tylee to babysit JJ, and Tylee did not want to. Lori Vallow also told Gibb that Tylee had turned into a zombie when she was 12 or 13, which was approximately the same time Tylee had become difficult to deal with, as opposed to every other kid at that age. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what exactly is a zombie. So I have to give a little bit of background here before I dive into these docs that a man by the name of Ian Pawlowski wrote. Ian married Melanie Boudreau. So this was Melanie and Brandon Boudreau when they were apparently happily married. They got a divorce. Brandon was shot at. That's a whole nother story, which we'll get to in a future video. He was shot at. People think that it was Alex Cox who shot at him. And this happened back in October, I believe October 2nd, 2019, before Tammy was shot at, which we'll get to that in a future video. Anyway, so Ian Pawlowski marries Melanie Boudreau. They say it was after 9 days of dating. I'm not so sure I believe that. That's very difficult to believe anything is possible with this crew. But Ian's ex-wife, Natalie Pawlowski, reached out to him because she was really worried. She had gotten a hold of Brandon Boudreau, who let her know that Melanie was part of a cult, that there were 2 missing kids, and all of this stuff was going down. So Ian's initial response was one of tremendous fear. So he agrees to wear a wire for law enforcement, particularly for the FBI, but it was also for Rexburg Police Department. And what they were going after was some reference by Chad and Lori to the location of the kids. So Ian wears this wire for a while, then has second thoughts about it, comes clean to Melanie, lets her know that they were recently married, lets her know that he had been wearing a wire, he felt really bad about it, and Melanie was already being represented by this law firm, so they told Ian to document everything that he told law enforcement while he was cooperating with them. He did that in this document, saves it to his laptop, I guess forgets that it's there. I'm not exactly sure. He passes on that laptop to his son, and his ex-wife goes digging through Ian's laptop, finds this document, punts it off to Brandon. He passes it on to his attorneys. It becomes part of the court filing. And again, to my discredit, when I first saw these documents, I dismissed them. I didn't even finish reading them because it was just more zombie nonsense. And I just thought, there's no way this can be real. Like, you can't have sentient adults who believe that people become zombies. And it actually wasn't until Melani Pawlowski started doing interviews and I picked up on her anxiety and these undertones of resentment toward Ian for having written these documents that I took a second look and I was like, oh, wait a minute. She was actually really upset about these documents. And so that's how these documents landed on my radar. So they were published by East Idaho News. And he pulled together an outline. You can tell he has a really organized mind, so I'm not sure how all of this works for him. But he pulled together an outline, and then he also had a portion that was written like in paragraph form. So we're going to touch on just the zombie portion of it. We will revisit this document from time to time, both the outline and the actual document that's kind of in paragraph form. So here he's talking about zombies. He says human bodies. So what he's explaining what exactly a zombie is. Human bodies that have had their original spirits forced from them and have been possessed by either a demon, original third of the heavenly host who followed Lucifer, a disembodied spirit, so that's once living human spirits who have chosen not to be reborn into another probation. Again, a probation is another life. Or, third option, it's hard to say this one with a straight face. I don't know how Nate Eaton does it. Or a worm/slug. So they hadn't even really nailed down, is it a worm or is it a slug? And he explains this is a creature controlled by Lucifer that enters the body to control the host. Spirits can also be pushed from their bodies during traumatic events or deadly injury. I just really don't even know what to do with that one. I think that's pretty well accepted that a spirit is pushed from a person's body during a deadly injury. Moving on. Spirits pushed out are trapped in limbo as the body they're tied to is still living but cannot be occupied by them anymore. That's the explanation that we see with Charles Vallow in his body being overtaken by this demon. In one video, it says that this Nick Schneider was a person that Charles Vallow knew at one time. I think that was Melanie Gibb who said that. But essentially, his spirit was pushed out and now he's trapped in limbo. So the only merciful thing to do at that point is to release the person from limbo, which that can only happen by death. So moving on, spirits trapped in limbo cannot progress to a new mortal life and cannot re-enter their existing body. The only way to move forward is to await the death of their current possessed body. This is all bizarre. This is all difficult to wrap your mind around. But this little extra annotation is just next level. This is an illegal action against heavenly law performed by the possessor. So I don't know exactly what the consequences of that, if they receive a heavenly citation or what, but okay. Okay, so moving on to the essay portion of Ian's document. He writes, and I'm pulling this out from the document. We married faster than any sane couple would, you think, but we both felt it was right. On our wedding night, she began to elaborate on the ideas she shared earlier about her children coming to her. She explains zombies and her fears about what Chad and Lori stated concerning original spirits being caught in limbo until the body's death. She stated that Brandon had been possessed by a demon or another dark entity sometime after June of this year. She was told either through revelation or by Chad, and I think that this was a typo. I think it's supposed to be Chad or Lori because there's no Chad Dorr character anywhere else, that something would happen to him, that something needed to happen to him in order for his spirit to progress and for the Lord's plan to continue. She didn't take well to the idea of her husband dying as part of the Lord's plan. I mean, to be fair, who would? But didn't think any action would be taken by anyone. She still loves Brandon and would never wish any ill on him. It just sounded to her like it would be something that happened on its own when it was his time. This sounds a lot like Joe Ryan, Tammy Daybell, and even Alex Cox. Somehow it just happened to be their time. Not buying it. The discussion moved to Chad and Lori's missing children. At the time, only JJ was counted missing, and the Rexburg Police Department had conducted raids on Melanie's apartment along with Al's. Melanie had been told by Chad and Lori that their children had been possessed and had become zombies. She shared concerns that she's been told Brandon needed to die, and that may indicate that Tylee and JJ needed to die as well. She told me that she was worried that Al may have had to, air quotes, take care of the kids. She explained that Al had great faith and never wavered in his trust in the Lord. No task would be too difficult or great for him. At that point, I became severely worried. But I told myself, there's no way I just married into a situation so sinister. So now we're going to take a look at how that actually played out in Tammy Daybell's life, as well as JJ and Tylee's. This is how Angela Stone, who had been a follower of Chad Daybell and then left the group, described what led up to Tammy Daybell's death.
But Angela wasn't necessarily alone. There was more talk, much darker, said Angela, of terrifying visions, of evil spirits, zombies inhabiting human bodies, taking over loved ones. Like Chad's wife, Tammy.
I heard that Chad believed that his wife was supposed to have died in a car accident and that she was now inhabited by a zombie, by an evil spirit, doesn't have control of herself, and it's detrimental to the work of God.
And this is what Melanie Gibb said about what precipitated Tammy Daybell's demise.
But Charles wasn't the only person with life insurance whose death had been prophesied by Chad. There was also the woman he'd always called the love of his life. Did Chad tell you or Lori that his wife Tammy was going to die?
Mm-hmm.
Did he say how or when?
No, he didn't. He could have made it up on the spot because he met Lori. I don't know.
But when you were in that little bubble, it didn't feel like that at all.
Right.
It felt real.
People were always either darker zombies or turning into zombies, and I was like, why are all these people in your life turning into zombies?
Anybody you don't like is a zombie.
Pretty much. Or somebody that's preventing you from being with Chad, basically. Yeah. Or him with her.
Not that Tammy wouldn't mind so much, Chad told them. Wouldn't mind dying, that is.
She'd understand. That's what he would say. She would understand.
And I saved the toughest for last. Major trigger warning. This involves the death of children under very unusual circumstances.
In September 2019, they began to gather. The end times prophesied by Chad getting closer. On September 1st, Lori abruptly moved with JJ and Tylee from Phoenix to this townhouse in Rexburg. Brother Alex moved in just around the corner. Lori's niece right next door. Chad was a short drive away. On September 8th, Lori and the kids, with Alex, drove to nearby Yellowstone National Park and took the last known photos of Tylee, just days before her 17th birthday. And when Melanie Gibb came to Rexburg for a spiritual conference 2 weeks later, did you see Tylee there?
No.
What did Lori tell you about where she was?
She told me she was at BYU, Idaho, going to school with some friends.
The BYU Idaho campus is just up the hill from Lori's townhouse.
I was like, she got her into BYU. I wonder how she did that.
Melanie knew by then. Lori told her that Tylee had been declared a zombie.
Chad had told her, she wasn't made a zombie just recently. She turned a zombie back when she became a difficult teenager.
Difficult teenager? Who knows? And JJ? Just a few days before Melanie's visit, he had been seen on his neighbor's Ring doorbell video playing in the courtyard with a friend. And he was there when Melanie arrived. But listen to what Lori told Melanie.
She said, he became a zombie the day before I arrived. And the reason why I believe he became a zombie, my own internal thoughts, is that he was going to stop Chad and Lori from being together, basically. And I think he was in the way. And I think that's why he became a zombie.
And what happens to zombies?
Seems like they are dying.
All that weekend, said Melanie, Lori seemed to be making up reasons to say that JJ was out of control.
She was obsessed about talking about it, to the point where she was saying, look how he's behaving. Look how hyper he is here. She was planting ideas to show me that she believed he was a zombie. And to my mind, he looked like typical JJ to me.
A friend of Melanie's named David was there too that weekend. They were leaving Monday morning, September 23rd.
When I went to say goodbye, Lori was just there, and she said that JJ had one of his zombie moments and climbed up on my fridge, pushed my picture of Christ down, and climbed up onto the upper cabinets and was stuck between the ceiling and the cabinet and just raging. And, I'm looking at the cabinets, and I saw absolutely no sign of any damage of any kind, not even a scuff.
You knew right away she was lying to you.
Yeah. So I just said, I would like to see JJ. And I wanted to see him. And she said, oh, Alex, he was out of control, so I had Alex come and get him.
Brother Alex, the man who killed Lori's husband. The very next day, Lori checked JJ out of his school. Never seen again after that.
Correct.
You must wonder what happened that day.
Oh, I wonder. Yeah.
So what you will see as a consistent pattern across these mysterious deaths, with Tylee and JJ being found in Chad Daybell's backyard, in shallow graves, across this entire story, is that all they had to do to justify murdering someone, even innocent children, was just declare that this person had become a zombie, which just meant that this person in some way got in the way of what they wanted, whether that was to be married, whether that was money. I mean, this all comes down to sex and money, like so many murders. There's this whole undercurrent of this religious element, but it's all about sex and money.